Continuăm acum cu o prezentare. Este alături de noi Pat McCarthy, Senior Security Advisor, Huawei Cybersecurity Transparency Center din Bruxelles. I'll switch to English. Hello, welcome to Cybersecurity Forum.
Thank you very much.
I know you have a presentation and you're going to talk about cybersecurity as a shared responsibility. Please, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. And first of all, apologies for presenting in English. I'm from Ireland, on the west coast of Ireland, on the Atlantic, but I'm living and working in Brussels. Normally, we have a new colleague who would be presenting, but he's at a global training in Shenzhen with our first face-to-face since COVID of the global cybersecurity team. But I've been in Huawei advising for about 9 years, so you have the pleasure of my company. I have it here. So if I stand over here, I can just point out a few things. So I want to, it's not really a Huawei presentation, it's more of a general presentation about my perspective on the shared responsibility. Just see if I could do this. Perfect. So first of all, we kind of talk about cybersecurity as a shared responsibility and different layers. As an engineer, I like looking at things in terms of layers. And from a cybersecurity perspective, layering is the critical first steps in layering your defense, as you all probably well know. But looking from this perspective, there are equipment vendors like Huawei providing boxes and software and solutions. There are operators deploying and operating services, and then there's application security for service providers and customers who are often advised by system integrators like my colleagues. So First Bank would be, at the top layer as a key customer in Romania. We have Ford would be advising customers, and Atos would be advising operators and customers. And I think the key point on this slide is you cannot rely on any one vendor for cybersecurity, and no one vendor could actually really make the impact. Needs the whole ecosystem to come together. And I'll talk about trusting and the concept of zero trust later on in the presentation. We look at the context of this, kind of backing up this slide, is a good slide from ENISA. In 2021, they presented their ICT Cyber Security methodology. And you can see the similar presentation talking about various products like security elements, various products that are provided from different ICT vendors, people providing ICT infrastructure and the stakeholders to advise the implementing of those architectures. And then in particular, they're emphasizing that there's different threats in different sectors, whether it's in banking, whether it's in healthcare, government services, particularly anything to do with a lot of public information, citizen information, critical assets. These are very sensitive areas that need significant protection. And it talks about the need for all the actors to take responsibility. And it talks about the need for the government and regulators and standards to work together to ensure good security. This is a really good example in the mobile space. I'm not sure how familiar with this one, but the GSMA, which is the Global Mobile Association, working with the standards organization, 3GPP, created a solution called NETAS, which is Network Equipment Security Assurance System, which is a way to look at a common way in the network for the network elements to see, are we actually securing them to a common baseline standard that's world class. And the carriers came together to support this initiative. The vendors came together to test their equipment against it. Various test houses got involved to ensure that they were being tested to these standards, and various auditing companies to monitor this. And then finally, government agencies like BSI in Germany, Europe, ENISA, NIS in America, others have come together to back this. So this is an example, because you cannot secure mobile networks just in Romania or in Europe. Mobile networks are global. IT networks are global. So threats can come in from anywhere. So it's really important that we take a global approach to ensuring security. Another example is the policy that's taken place. I was monitoring some of the presentations this morning, and some of my other presenters talked about the Digital Acts and the NIS2. And there's been work taking place since 2013, introducing cybersecurity regulation in Europe. And it's like a layer of the onion. Every year, 2 years, more and more capability, more and more policy has been introduced to strengthen cybersecurity for Europe. And these two are quite the most recent, such as the Cyber Resilience Act, which is kind of emphasizing that there are critical products, things like in the most critical area, like your operating system, your internet firewall, CPU, or security elements. These will need third-party assessment, just like I talked in NETAS, but for ITC products, to ensure that they're going to comply with the best security. And we can see the examples of that if you're familiar with SolarWinds. The SolarWinds attack on the Microsoft network from bad actors around the world basically exposed public infrastructure all over the world to a major cybersecurity incidents on the Microsoft servers. And those incidents came in through the supply chain, where Microsoft was bringing in software from a third party into their systems, and it shows the challenge and why this is so important. NIS2, building on NIS, mentioned this morning, and the key thing here is it's going to introduce more verticals. In Ireland, for example, in NIS, our National Cybersecurity Agency probably is monitoring about 50 organisations in Ireland today. Going forward in NIS2, they're going to be monitoring hundreds. So they have to change the way they have to look at monitoring this, because now the agency can't just do this with kind of phone books and contacts and regular meetings. They have to have a much more instrumented model to manage hundreds of companies that are now going to be part of the surveillance for cybersecurity. And those companies in things, important entities like food production, manufacturing chemicals, electrical market, waste management, all these different sectors that weren't in NIS are now going to be part of the national reporting in all the countries in Europe. And another presenter this morning talked about cyber skills and training. So there's going to be a huge need for more and more cyber experts in these organizations to support it. In Huawei, we have about 200,000 people working. Half of those people are working R&D. And we have over 3,000 people who are cybersecurity experts. We've been building this for about for the last 10 years, strengthening and building a strong cybersecurity organization. In addition, we spend about 5% of our R&D protecting our products. So it's a huge investment taking place. So it gives you an idea. And the reason I mentioned that is not really about Huawei, that's irrelevant. It's about the fact, if you look at what you're going to need to do in Romania, and all the companies and all the R&D that's going on, you've got to ask your question, how much has been spent on R&D in security? How many people do we have expert in the organization, cybersecurity, data protection? And have you got the right partners that are going to be key to do this? Because you won't necessarily have all the skills in-house, and partners like Atos and Ford are going to be very important to support you. Finally, secure products. While we would be expected to have secure products, and just a quick update on how we do that, we follow some international capability models like the Open Software Assurance Maturity Model, or the BEST Standards and Maturity Model, or Microsoft's SDL. And across what we call the Integrated Product Development Model, at the concept, the planning, the development, quality, launch, we have security steps. And there, we use some of these processes, we use various tools, and we checkpoint that. So if you want to get a product out of Huawei, not just does the product line have to develop, but also we have independent organizations, like the organization I sit with, that will do an additional test. And even that isn't enough, because we do external testing, like we do in Brussels, or with the independent ones like the NITAS testing. So the key point, and my last slide, and before I go there, if you want to know more about this, just Google the Huawei Product Security Baseline, and there we transparently tell you all the things that we check and what we would check in our suppliers. as a high level. Obviously, there's more behind it, but it gives you a very good summary of what we do. So the closing point is, apologies again for presenting in English. Next year, at this event, we'll have a local colleague, I guarantee you. But I would say it's a great honor to be here. And cybersecurity isn't just a Romanian. It's a European issue. It's a global issue. And it's a big cultural change. And the thing I would say is two things. ABC, assume nothing, believe nobody, and check everything. Really fundamental change in behavior if you want to ensure cybersecurity in Romania, in your organization, in your suppliers. And also, people talk about trust in this industry. The first thing I would suggest is stop thinking about trust. Think about zero trust. You don't trust anybody. You don't trust your vendors, you don't trust your partners, you don't trust your own organization, you don't trust your users. Because the weakest link in cybersecurity will come from your users in your organization. That is proven to be the most sensitive area. So check your users, check your applications, have identity authorization for your users, your applications, your functions, and your data, and that will give you a starting point. But think ABC and zero trust. Cheers.
Thank you very much. I'm sure. Okay. The networks are global. The internet and the mobile networks are global. So cybersecurity is a global thing, an European thing, and a Romanian thing. From this perspective, how do you see how well do you see Romania as prepared for cyber attacks in this global context?
Well, I think you have a very good starting position, because first of all, you're a tech country. We're in a high-tech city. My own organization and several other organizations recognize this because we put our global support organizations here because some of the best in technology are in your city. So that gives you a really good starting point. But to be honest, just because they're here servicing tech, customers all over Europe may be getting more benefit than necessarily customers in Romania. So you need to think about, the way I do it, even in Ireland, small country, 6 million people, it's about the clusters. And is cybersecurity not just in Bucharest, but is it also in the other cities? And also in your new innovative companies, are they bringing in cybersecurity into them from the start? I have this challenge myself. I'm on a research innovation with Science Foundation in Ireland, and sometimes I ask the head professor of the centre, saying, have you thought about cybersecurity in this example? And the professor would say, well, I'm focusing on AI. I'm focusing on big data. Cybersecurity, that's this guy. And that's the thinking that has to stop. We have to bring cybersecurity and tech together. So I think that's maybe your challenge here, and that's another challenge everywhere. Bring cybersecurity. Like, you have more people here today than in many cybersecurity workshops I've had in Brussels.
Nice.
So that's a good start.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation.